soft and fair. Eyes of promise, golden hair, and I will always love her as the years go on and on. Fall, winter, summer, and spring. Once my life was many days, wasted time in many ways, and I will always count the days as they pass by. Fall, winter, summer, and spring. Now my life means more to me. Now my eyes can really see, and I'm in love.
Folks, welcome back inside the Parisi Palace at 2919 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show on KEVT Power Talk 1210 AM here in Tucson. We just heard from Australian pianist Bryce Rohde, who is essentially, if I can do the math correctly, I think 92 years old and still cooking along, part of the Australian Jazz Quintet. And my next guest connected with this guy via new media several months ago, a drummer. I think at first he probably was like, I don't know who this cat is, and didn't really, there wasn't much of a connection there. But then in San Diego, maybe a month ago, I'm digging through the record shop there, and I find an album called Ars Nova, and my guest is playing drums. So I said, okay, wait a minute, there's a little bit of more deeper history here. Sure enough, he finally starts seeing my relentless posts and stories, and just devotion to the musicians who created real music at a time in our history. And now he joins us live on the Jake Feinberg Show. Maury Baker, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. Nice to be on it.
Oh, it's great to hear you, man. I mean, it did tweak me out a little bit to see Ars Nova. I mean, that when I saw you play, I said, okay, this cat's got a resume that's kind of deep, and quite honestly, I mean, I know that you've played with some pretty big acts, but Elektra was kind of a boutique label. Could you explain how that all came together?
Well, yeah. Actually, what had happened was we started in New York, Ars Nova, and we were all at the same conservatory, Nana's Conservatory in New York, and we met together. And people heard us back there, and Arthur Gorson heard us, and we put the group together, and he decided to get together and have us come out to the West Coast and do a recording with Elektra and Jack Holtzman. And Jack Holtzman, of course, was the executive producer of the album. And Paul Rothschild, of course, was the actual producer of the record. So that's basically what happened. Wyatt Day and John Pearson, put most of the music together. I did some things on the album. I did an arrangement of Also sprach Zarathustra, the Strauss piece that
we were just listening to. Yeah, that was. Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, to me, it's like, I guess being somebody that was born in the late '70s and '78. I mean, was there any talk amongst you guys about labels in music? Were you ever using labels? Because I don't know where. I mean, there's 5 labels that fit that music.
Well, yeah. I mean, kind of. We were sort of in a situation like the Procol Harum and the New York Rock and Roll Ensemble. So we were we were into early music. I'm very much into early music, Renaissance and Baroque music. And so, it was our idea to kind of meld that together with, a rock group. And then, of course, it spread out from there because it kind of got into a thing where we were doing Strauss, which, of course, obviously is not early music. And so we stretched it out a little bit, and it became kind of, I don't know, a different kind of organic thing. It just kind of grew into, a kind of eclectic kind of music. And the first album I did with them, we did with Elektra, and then I left the group along with a couple of other people, and they reformed the group and did a second album that I wasn't involved with. And at that point, they changed the whole feel of the group, and it lost its classical, Renaissance Baroque kind of thing, and just went into more of a pop jazz kind of element.
How do you account for the fact that was a product that could be marketed in our capitalistic system at that time? That kind of music?
Like I say,
yeah.
I mean, it had, look at Procol Harum, they were quoting Bach and the New York Rock and Roll Ensemble was doing it. And back then, there was a certain kind of ethos in the music industry that was a lot more honest and less posing kind of thing. It was like they were really trying to, it was part of the whole times of the 60s. I mean, it was, kind of a renaissance of a kind, and that was just part of it. And that's why it wasn't so far-fetched to do something like that, because, everybody was into being very free about how they assembled things together, and weren't really worried about labels so much. And labeling fanaticism really started to grow a lot later, I think, and that's basically how that happened.
You just used the word. I haven't used it a lot, but can you talk about what you mean by posing?
Well, imagery. It's the image of something. It's more about how it looks. It's more about causing a trend, as opposed to digging deep into what you have to say. I mean, look at somebody like Joni Mitchell. I mean, Joni Mitchell is had a lot to say. She didn't care whether she was labeled whatever she was labeled. I mean, later on, she decided to go and play with a lot of fusion players. I mean,
right.
She stretched out, had Jaco playing in the band, and had a lot of other players. So she wasn't worried about an image and a label and appearing to look like something or appearing to be in a certain genre. She didn't care about that, and we didn't either. Really, we knew that we would be. Probably people would look at that and say, well, what makes you think you can mix rock and roll with, especially early music? I mean, let alone just classical music, early music. I mean, we were quoting things like Machot's Mass, which is a 14th century Mass. I mean, that was pretty crazy for those times, and probably would be pretty crazy right now. But who knows?
Well, I mean, so the idea is that, and because we're more image obsessed now, and people are very concerned about their image, we weren't living in such a visual time, so people were less concerned about image, and you could really go for the core principles of what you were going to try to create: spiritual, holistic music. Is there something to that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the more that the media and the more that our immediate sense of, phones and computers and all of that, the more that grabs hold of our national consciousness, so to speak, I don't know how else to put it, the more we're obsessed with the immediate and, gratification right now. And so does it look good? How does it, does it fit a trend? Does it, can you sell it? And,
right.
That's,
Well,
so that's
I think that it's like,
how that works.
I mean, you look at the Jake Feinberg show, I know you know it somewhat, and it's like,
right.
The question is, if you get knocked down, are you just going to get knocked off your block and you're going to be gone, or are you going to, dig in and really do stuff that is coming from your soul or your heart? I mean, I don't know if my show will ever be able to be monetized to any degree. But the idea of actually planting a seed and then, letting it grow before you either put steroids on it, or you plant another seed or another seed or another seed. So, I mean, But with Maury Baker, there's a lot, and we have a game on this program called Name That Tune. I'd like to play this song for you, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay, sure. Well, that's a good example of what I'm talking about here before in terms of imagery. Tim, who was pretty well known and had an established reputation as a folk singer, was doing that and there was a big spread about him in Harper's Bazaar, as a matter of fact, back in the mid '60s, toward the late '60s, and he was a folk singer, and then all of a sudden, he had been listening to Cecil Taylor. He had been listening to Albert Ayler and the real avant-garde outside cats in New York, and fell in love with that music and liked the freedom of it. And so he adapted that to his voice. And there's cuts on that Star Sailor album that are just remarkable, that John Balkin produced with him, and his voice over 16 times, and just amazing stuff, well ahead of its time.
I agree, and okay, so let's hold on to that for a minute. How did you get the call for that gig?
I had met his wife, Judy Buckley's sister, and we got together, and we were an item for a while. And then I remember meeting Lee Underwood, the guitarist, who and Lee's written a book about Tim, and Lee was Tim's right-hand man, pretty much. And then we got together, and it just clicked really well. And we were together, and Tim was one of my best friends for 3 years, and he was such a big influence on me in terms of music and exploring and he gave me more freedom than I had ever had musically in terms of being a drummer.
Can you talk about how he did that?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you talk about how he did that?
One of the things he always used to say to me was, I don't want to hear 2 and 4 all the time. He says, that's one thing he said. And the other thing is, don't ever repeat yourself.
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, well, I got to sound like Andrew Cyril, I got to be churning and playing and just,
burning, yeah.
So that's basically how that worked with him. And I love that because, at the end of playing a gig with him, I was sweating bullets. I mean, literally just coming off me, like water just pouring off of me, because he really drew as much out of me as anybody has ever drawn out of me. I mean, when I played with Janis, I played real hard, but I was playing straight up and down. I was playing groove,
That's right. Well, no, that's what I mean, because I mean, God, bless her, rest in peace, Janis Joplin. I mean, she just was such a pioneer, like Joni Mitchell was. But everything was always in 2 and 4. Everything was just straight rock, And the thing is that I love, even just getting that taste of that name of that tune was called "Come Here, Woman," off the Star Sailor album. I mean, you're playing. I mean, it says you're percussion and timpani, and you're just all over the place. Lots of different ideas, and you might have been sweating. You might have been sweating a lot, but you were actually you were at peace, because that's really where your home is. And my question really is, could you talk about a couple cats that you saw that had a huge impact on you as far as their own individual style of drumming?
Yeah, my biggest influences, and one that I actually had personal contact with, was Max Roach.
Wow.
Max Roach was my idol and biggest idol. I mean, after the original guys, Krupa and Rich and all those Belts and all those guys early on when I was growing up, then it was Tony Williams, later on. But Max was my biggest influence, and when I was going to high school in New York, there was a candy store, drugstore up on the corner, and I would go there, after school and have, a Coke and French fries and that kind of thing. And there was Max Roach. I remember meeting him there, and I met him there at least 3 or 4 times. And every time I'd see him, I'd learn something. He'd be sitting at the counter. He would be going over to see Monk. And I'll tell you a story about Monk in a second.
Please.
But Max he told me, go to school, go to conservatory, study music, learn how to read, learn your instrument, learn your craft, and learn more than just drums. Learn music, be a musician, and that was a big, big, big influence on me. I mean, he was such a gentleman and the consummate musician, great composer, great everything. I mean, he just was just wonderful, and he was my biggest influence. And speaking of Monk, I used to live 2 doors down from the 5 Spot in New York.
Oh, wow.
2 doors down.
2 doors down.
My crib, which was a subterranean apartment. I could see people's legs walking by.
Right.
And then there was the Turkish bath next to me, and then next to that, on the corner of St. Mark's Place, was the 5 Spot, which was about the size of my room that I'm in right now.
Right.
And I used to go see Monk almost every night, since that was his home base. And one night, I remember, and I used to hang out with Frankie Dunlop, his drummer at the time.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, before,
Wow.
I think this was kind of before Ben Riley became his drummer for the most part. Anyway, and Frankie Dunlop and I got really buddy, and we talked a lot, and Frankie was hysterical. He had a great sense of humor. He used to do impressions of all the drummers, including Max and everybody, and Art Blakey, and everybody. And we'd sit and talk, and I was a young guy. I was like maybe 18, 17, 18, 19. And so one night I had written a tune called Monk's Funk, and I took the lead sheet over to, and I was shaking, and I was walking, and there was his tenor player standing outside, and I gave him the tune, and I showed it to him, and I said, "Gee, I got this tune I wrote, Monk," and he said, he looks at it, he says, "Yeah, that's a cool tune." He says, "Go show it to Monk." So I walked inside the 5 Spot, and Monk was in this back tiny little room standing around and doing his little dancing thing, like that he did all the time. And I showed him this tune. I said, Mr. Monk, I called him Mr. Monk.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Monk.
Well, excuse me, I'm not a hat designer. What do you mean, Mr. Monk? So I gave him this tune, and he looks at the tune, and he looked at the tune, and he kind of, saw him moving his head around. He says, "Yeah," he says, "You don't have any chords written here." I said, "Well, I thought I'd just write the head of the tune, and you'd probably put the changes to it." And I gave him the tune, and I don't even remember what happened after that. I was so petrified that I kind of, thanks a lot, and I walked out, And now, years later, I still remember the tune. I got the tune in my head, and I wrote it out, and I actually did a file in Logic on it. So I've got it written now and recorded. I recorded the parts and everything. But, he was another idol of mine.
Did he play the tune? Do you know if he ever played the tune?
No, I have never played the tune.
No, did he ever play it? Did he ever play it? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know if he ever played the tune. I never heard it. So it sounds like a Monk tune. I mean, I wrote it in his style. So it's a definite. It would, if you heard the tune, you would say, "Oh, Monk wrote that," because I didn't take any of his tunes, but I wrote a tune in that same style. So that's basically what it is.
Maury, talking to Maury Baker here, a tremendous drummer for decades. And you said before, like Buckley's music, Star Sailor, and other albums, such progressive stuff was coming out of the late '60s. And I wanted for you to there's a 2-part question here. How much of that expansion, sonic expansion, and new language can be attributed to psychedelics? And can you talk about if you did psychedelics, how that increased your sonic awareness, how it increased it could be just your introspection. I mean, probably a good buddy, friend of your, Dave Getz, talked about how it connected him with his inner black side. And I'm very fascinated about this stuff because it's the transformational part of music. So you take that on any way you want.
Well, let me just say this: as far as heavy psychedelics concerned, yeah, I experimented a little bit with that back then, and just about anybody in the arts pretty much did. I mean, obviously, and I never really I don't remember ever really playing doing that. I mean, outside of smoking old grass or something.
Sure.
I mean, I mean that was the only thing that I liked a little bit. And when I was on stage with Janice, she used to come around with little shot glasses, and with tequila. At the time, it was tequila and not Southern Comfort when I was with her. And I'd always say to her, no, I don't want that. And I tell her later, listen, I don't want to drink. If I drink, the time is going to go to hell, and I ain't going to do that. So I didn't want to drink, so I didn't ever drink.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Right
So
on.
in terms of any dark side or introspection in relationship to drugs of any kind, especially anything heavy, I'm not a good person to ask because I never really wanted to do those two things at the same. I'd like to be in control of my craft at all times, and that may sound, I don't know how that sounds, but
no, that's not. I mean, you're just. I mean, what I was going to counter with is that okay. So that's how you stay in control. Some people needed to get off on drugs to stay in control of the music too.
Exactly.
I mean, so
exactly.
it goes both ways. To me, it's,
sure.
It's like. But I mean, can you account? I mean, is it pretty self-evident that the music expanded because of psychedelics at that time? Why it holds up better today than it did then?
Well, I don't know. I know that Tim didn't do that, and neither did anybody else in the band. Pretty much do that.
He was just listening. I mean, you just happened to be there with. I mean, that's what I love talking to you guys about. Is like the fact that that now today I learned that Tim Buckley was getting off on Albert Eiler, and
right.
even music like I can't even comprehend sometimes. Taj Mahal the same way. I mean, these are guys that are roots. Folk players, but yet they were listening to free jazz.
Well, listen. I mean, think about this. I mean, when we were on the road with Zappa, and I got to play a concert with Zappa one night because Jim Gordon, who was doing the gig, couldn't do it, so I had to sit in and play with Zappa, which talk about scary.
I can't even imagine the time changes within each tune.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. And Zappa was vehemently opposed to anybody doing any drugs of any kind. And if you were caught doing any drugs in his band, you were gone. I don't care who you were and how good you were gone. He was vehemently opposed to any kind of drugs.
Zero tolerance policy from Zappa. Yeah, no, the problem is he smoked too many cigarettes.
Yeah, right. He didn't need the other stuff.
He didn't need the other stuff. But
yeah, right.
I mean,
but
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, I was just going to say that and when you listen to Star Sailor, for instance, you listen to that and you think, gee, that guy had to be loaded. I mean, that guy, how do you,
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't. And so, to me, he was in touch with and tapped into his inner whatever without that aid.
That's
I
right.
mean, and
That's right.
and as you said, there are some people that like that aid, and that opens them up. And so it's just a matter of choice, and a matter of how you connect with your inner self. And if you do it through meditation, fine. If you do it through drugs, I guess fine, up to a point unless it's life-threatening. And if you do it just naturally, even better. I mean, look at people like Stravinsky. Stravinsky wrote stuff that nobody had ever thought of, and he wasn't loaded. How did he do that?
Well, no, I mean, to me, this is we have a serious crisis in this country with drug addiction, with pharmaceutical drugs, legal drugs, illegal drugs, and it's like, so when I talk to cats like yourself or McLaughlin, for instance, Santana. When I get to interview Carlos, I mean, it's like these guys realized, they were getting off because they were doing a lot of drugs, but they also said there has to be a higher consciousness without tapping into this, and they searched, like you said, for Eastern spirituality with Sri Chinmoy. But the point is that it's there, and I want to I'm just trying to make the point to people that, in some of the excerpts that I put up, is that you can play transcendent music without being out of your mind.
There you go.
Tripping out.
And here's another element. Since I'm a, quote, conservatory guy or classical, and I play in a Baroque orchestra. I play in a period Baroque orchestra that plays all instruments from the 18th and 17th century, and I play timpani in that orchestra. And we do Bach B minor Mass, and we do the Mozart Requiem, and we do Handel and all that kind of thing. And when you're doing that kind of music, you better be straight. I mean, there's no way you're gonna. You're going to be able to be loaded. And by the same token, if you're playing Zappa, you better not be loaded, because you're not going to be able to read that stuff at all. I remember, and I was very fortunate, I met, when I was in New York, I got to meet Edgar Varese. Now, Edgar Varese was Zappa's major influence. Varese was his idol, his hero.
I just found one of his records, actually. It's funny you brought him up. Continue.
Yeah, and when I met him, we were talking outside. It was a record store on 4th Street, positively, and and I looked at him and I recognized him, of course, because he had those great crazy eyebrows and crazy hair. And I went up to him, I said, Mr. Varese, I said, Maestro, I said, I just wanted to say hello and meet you. And then he looked at me, and he was an old man by then. And he said, do I know you? I said, no, you don't know me. And he said, well, are you a musician? I said, yeah, I'm a drummer and percussionist. He said, oh. And then he started talking about all the guys that he knew in the New York Philharmonic and whatever. And then he said to me, would you like to come up to my house? And I thought, oh, man, this would be great. But then, being young and an idiot, I said, no, I can't come, because I thought, I had to go see my girlfriend or something.
Sure.
And instead of calling her, spending a quarter on the phone next morning, saying, listen, I can't make it right now. I got to go to Edgar Varese's house.
I love it.
I canceled it and didn't go. And I thought later on, I thought to myself, well, you moron, are you crazy? You could have gone up to Edgar Varese's house. How many people could say they did that, which,
you've
by
done,
the way, I did get to do with Sun Ra. I went to Sun Ra's house once. I don't know how that happened, but I met him.
Maury, I just got to tell you, we got to pick this up another. I mean, we have a lot more to get to. This is just an appetizer, man. And it's been great to connect with you, and we'll find the time to do part 2. Okay.
Great, sounds great.
All right, man.
I really enjoyed it.
We'll be right back on the Jake Feinberg Show.